Hey, this is the final video in our first time homebuyer workshop series. We're going to talk about closing. That's the really exciting time when you become the homeowner. We're going to talk about closing, your first payment, and what it's like to be a homeowner. It's going to be a very interesting video, and please stick around to the end. Hey, I'm Peter Lindquist with the Lindquist team. I'm here with Travis Anderson, Realtor, who has helped me throughout this entire first time homebuyer workshop. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. We talk about a lot of stuff about home buying, and feel free to leave any comments below if you've got any questions. When you're all done with the loan process, we send you an email that says you are cleared to close. That's what we're all waiting for. That means the next step is closing. Travis, why don't you tell us what happens after a buyer's loan is cleared to close?
Yeah, the week of closing, we get that clear to close about a week before closing. We really want to get the buyer to get their utilities set up, Peter. And so that takes, a couple of hours for the buyer to get their utilities set up. And then we send them back to you to make sure that they have the final numbers in order, that the check or the wire in line. And then we schedule the final walkthrough. We take a walk through the property one more time before they sign on the dotted line. And we just make sure that there hasn't been any vandalism or damage to the property that we weren't aware of or something like that. Before we sign that dotted line, we need to make sure we negotiate something like that. It doesn't happen very often, but it's really a formality. So we go to that final walkthrough. And again, by that time, we normally have kicked them back to you regarding the final numbers. And so why don't you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so we have issued you two things called closing disclosures. There's an initial closing disclosure that comes out to you a minimum of 3 days prior to closing. And that gives you a very close estimate as to what you need at closing. But then the day before, you're getting the final closing disclosure. And that tells you the exact number that you need so that you can go ahead and get your cashier's check or what have you for closing. And then you can see what the numbers are. So nothing really is a surprise at closing. You actually get a chance to see your closing package. We email it to you the day before closing. So you get a chance to see it all. So at closing, it's really just a matter of signing documents. That's what we do right before closing.
I always like to tell my clients they're going to review those documents again that they've already seen from you. The title company has a document that's a replica, just a different format. And then they're going to see a document called the mortgage, which is a pretty big document. And then the note, which is the terms of the loan. Those are kind of the three most important documents: the numbers, the mortgage, and the note. And then there's a bunch of disclosures that people sign. And I think closings today, especially with your company, you do sort of a flash closing or what have you. I think closings are taking maybe 25 to 35 minutes. If we don't have mortgage company like you, it might take up to an hour for a buyer. What's your experience on that?
Before I came to this company, it was a minimum of an hour for closing. And we use this process called flash close, which allows you to see the closing package electronically, and then you're e-signing much of your closing package before you ever go to the closing table. So it really shaves off some time. And at the closing table, you want it to be done with, because at the end, the sellers are handing you your keys, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right there at the closing table is when you get the keys. And, most of the time people are going right to their home and they're opening it up and they're kind of familiarizing themselves with the property, which is great. And then normally we're talking about at the closing table, what projects are we going to do next, right? What rooms are we painting? What floors are we replacing? What light fixtures and stuff like that? And so it's really fun because people really start to take ownership of the home at that closing table. And then Peter, how does the first payment work? Because it's different a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, when it comes to your first payment, we'll tell you when you can make that first payment. It's anywhere from 30 days to 60 days, depending on the day you close and the mortgage program that you're on, but we'll identify that for you. And then typically you're making that payment as an online payment, and we'll walk you through our loan servicing process after that.
Yeah, nice. And if we close on June 15th, buyers are always asking if their payment's due July 1st. But if you close in the middle of a month, like June 15th as an example, you wouldn't make your first payment till August 1st. Is that correct?
That's true. Any day of the month that you close in June, your first payment comes due on August 1st. That's because mortgage interest payments are the exact opposite of rent. With rent, your August 1st payment is for the month of August. With mortgage payments, your August 1st payment is for the interest that accrued over the month of July. So, all that is to say is that if you close in June, we can set it up so that your first payment doesn't come due until August 1st.
Yeah, it's so confusing, but that interest accrues, you make the payment after, and that you explained it perfectly. One of the things I like to tell my clients is that 80% of the wealth, this is according to, I think the author's name is Stanley, wrote a couple of really best-selling books about wealth, and 80% of wealth, according to him, is owned in real estate. And so I really, buying your first home, buying your second home, what have you, it's really important for us to do this to develop some of the wealth that we own. And as a realtor, I get paid when you buy and sell real estate, but I would love for all of my clients to buy their first home and to keep it as long as they can. Even if they move up to another home, I'd love for them to keep that first home that they have and keep it as a rental or something like that. Because once you become a homeowner, as far as building wealth and pride in ownership, things like that, there just really is nothing like it.
Yeah, that is very true. That I've just a couple of stories are that I'd say in the past 2 years, I've dealt with probably a dozen clients who within the last 6 to 10 years had bought their house with down payment assistance. So they used $1,000 to buy the house, and they walk away from that sale with somewhere between $60,000 and $100,000. And the key there was they bought a property at a good value and they stayed in it for a significant period of time. And I think that that's a misnomer. A lot of people feel like, hey, I can buy and flip. I can buy a house in 2 years and sell it. But in most cases, you're not actually making money that way. It's a matter of allowing the market to appreciate over time and allowing your mortgage payments to pay down the principal on your loan so that when you do sell it, you have a big gap between what you're selling it for and how much you owe. That difference is called equity, and that's pure money in your pocket.
Yeah, it's great. Hard to access, but great to have equity. So look, Peter, this has been fun, right? We did 9 videos here with first-time home buyers. We talked about the whole process from the beginning of thinking of making your purchase. We talked about the purchase agreement, inspections, appraisals, etc. And here we are. We're now closing and owning a home. Is there anything else that we should let these people know before we kind of end this series?
No, but I think I'll just say that the pride of ownership is something that is an intangible. Having been a renter and having been a homeowner, I can tell you that when I'm a homeowner, there's just something different about me personally and the way I look at the world because I'm owning a piece of Americana. I remember a realtor I used to work with used to say, used to refer to it as Americana, but I own my piece of America, and that comes from being a homeowner. So I think that that's a part that maybe you can't put a dollar value on, but is a big part of becoming a homeowner. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love it. It's a great way to end, right? Home ownership, pride in ownership in the great country of Americana, Peter.
All right. Well, thanks for watching through this whole series. If you've got any real estate questions whatsoever about buying a house, feel free to reach out to Travis. If you've got questions about mortgage financing or down payment assistance, what have you, feel free to reach out to me. Either one of us we're actually pretty friendly people. We would love to help you with any questions you might have. Thanks for taking the time. Travis, thanks for taking the time to be with me on this series.
Yeah, all my pleasure, Peter. Thank you as well.